Did you know that your everyday morning routine, the same one you followed for years, might be quietly setting you up for a stroke? Most older adults in America never suspect it. They assume strokes strike suddenly out of nowhere like lightning. But after decades studying the aging brain, I can tell you the earliest warnings don't start in a hospital room. They start in your bedroom, your kitchen, your bathroom, right in the first hour after you wake up. Because after age 60, your brain enters the morning in its most fragile state. Your blood is thicker, your pressure is rising, your vessels are stiffer, and certain habits, common, harmless looking habits, can triple your stroke risk before you even pour your first cup of coffee. In this video, I'll reveal the hidden morning triggers most seniors never recognize until it's too late, and the simple changes that could protect your brain for years to come. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Drinking coffee immediately after waking up. When I speak with my older patients here in the United States, I often begin with a question that seems harmless. What is the first thing you put into your body each morning? Most smile and answer proudly, "Doctor, my coffee. I've done it for 40 years." But after decades as a brain physician, I can tell you, this familiar American morning ritual is one of the most underestimated triggers of early morning strokes in adults over 60. Here is why. During the night, your body enters a long, unbroken stretch without fluid, usually 6 to 8 hours. As we age, the body loses its ability to retain moisture efficiently, and older adults naturally wake up in a state of mild dehydration. This is not just being thirsty. In medical terms, nighttime dehydration increases blood viscosity, meaning the blood becomes thicker, slower, heavier. Thick blood forces the heart to pump harder and reduces the smooth, steady flow your brain depends on every second. Now imagine what happens when this already thick blood meets your morning cup of coffee. Caffeine, especially on an empty stomach, pulls even more water from your system. It acts as a diuretic, worsening the dehydration you already woke up with. At the same time, caffeine stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, creating a surge in heart rate and blood pressure just minutes after you open your eyes. For a healthy 30-year-old, that surge may not cause much trouble. But for someone over 60, whose arteries are stiffer, whose blood vessels are narrower, and whose brain is already vulnerable, this combination becomes extremely dangerous. Here's what can happen inside your body. It triggers strokes. In the early morning, blood pressure naturally rises. Add dehydration plus caffeine, and you produce a sudden spike capable of overwhelming delicate vessels in the brain. It forms blood clots. Thick, concentrated blood is far more likely to clot. When caffeine further constricts the blood vessels, the narrowing increases the chance that a clot will get stuck. And when that happens in the brain, the result is an ischemic stroke. It reduces early morning blood flow to the brain. Older adults already experience a morning dip in cerebral perfusion. Starting the day with caffeine instead of hydration deepens that dip, starving brain cells of oxygen during a period when they are the most vulnerable. I still remember an 82-year-old patient of mine from Arizona. He had no major medical problems, no smoking history, and walked a mile every day. But he began experiencing brief episodes of hand clumsiness and trouble recalling simple words at breakfast. His scans later showed he'd had small, silent TIAs, tiny strokes, occurring shortly after waking. His only consistent habit? He drank strong black coffee every morning before drinking a single sip of water. When we reversed that routine, water first, coffee 20 to 30 minutes later, those episodes stopped completely. This is not about giving up coffee. It's about timing. Your brain does not want stimulation the moment you wake. It wants circulation. It wants hydration. It wants safety. And if this one simple habit can quietly push a healthy older adult toward a stroke, then you must ask yourself, what other morning behaviors are silently increasing your risk without you realizing it? Because the next habit on this list is even more common, yet far less talked about. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Sitting too long on the edge of the bed without moving. Among my older patients here in the United States, this is one of the habits they almost never think about. They wake up, push themselves upright, sit on the edge of the bed, and stay there, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for 20, waiting for their body to warm up. It feels harmless. It feels gentle. But medically, for adults over 60, this quiet stillness is far from harmless. In fact, it is one of the most subtle early morning conditions that triggers strokes and silently forms blood clots before you even take your first steps of the day. Let me explain why. When you sleep, blood flow slows and pools naturally in the lower part of the body. This is normal. But as we age, something important changes. The veins in our legs lose elasticity, the valves weaken, and circulation becomes sluggish. So when an older adult wakes up and sits without moving, the blood that pooled during the night continues to stagnate in the legs instead of rising back toward the heart and brain. This is a dangerous moment. Your heart is trying to restore circulation after hours of lying down, but your stillness prevents that upward flow. The result is a sudden mismatch: thick, slow moving blood in the legs, while your brain is desperately waiting for oxygen and nutrients after a long night. That's not morning grogginess, that's under circulation. And here's where the real danger begins. It triggers strokes. When blood remains trapped in the legs and fails to reach the brain efficiently, your blood pressure can spike as the heart tries to compensate. This sharp rise in pressure, especially common in older adults, can rupture fragile vessels in the brain or worsen a pre-existing blockage. It forms blood clots. Stagnant morning blood is a breeding ground for clot formation. If a clot forms in the deep veins of the legs, a single stretch or sudden movement can dislodge it and send it upward. When that clot travels to the brain, it can block a vessel instantly and cause a devastating ischemic stroke. It decreases early morning brain perfusion. Sitting still prevents the natural pump action of the calf muscles, the very mechanism your body relies on to push blood upward. Without that muscle pump, older adults experience some of the lowest morning cerebral blood flow levels of the entire day, precisely when the brain is the most fragile. I once treated a 79-year-old man from Ohio who believed he was having balance issues every morning. He described a strange fog, his hands trembling slightly, and a moment of drifting vision whenever he rose from the bed. He assumed it was age, but what struck me was his routine. He sat on the edge of the bed for 25 minutes every morning, checking the news on his phone. His scans later revealed microclots in the small vessels of the brain, tiny, silent injuries caused by poor circulation during the morning transition. When he shortened his sitting time and added gentle ankle rolls and shoulder movements before standing, those symptoms disappeared. This shows how something so ordinary, so familiar, can quietly drift into the category of danger without anyone noticing. Your first minutes after waking are a crossroads. Either you activate circulation or you let stillness sabotage it. A few seconds of gentle motion, flexing the toes, rotating the ankles, rolling the shoulders, can be the difference between healthy morning flow and a dangerous stagnation that places the brain at risk. And if simply sitting still can cause this much harm, wait until you hear about the next habit, one that millions of older Americans do every single morning, and almost no one realizes how risky it truly is. 3. Rushing to the bathroom the moment you stand up. Among my older patients across the United States, this is one of the most common and most misunderstood morning habits. Many seniors wake up with urgency, often because of nighttime urination, and the very first thing they do is stand up quickly and rush straight to the bathroom. It feels natural. It feels necessary. But for adults over 60, this simple action creates one of the most dangerous physiological shifts of the entire day. Let me explain what happens inside your body the moment your feet touch the floor. During the night, your blood pressure naturally drops, your heart rate slows, and your circulation becomes steady and quiet. When you suddenly move from lying down to standing, your body must instantly compensate to maintain blood flow to the brain. Younger adults handle this shift without difficulty, but in older adults, the cardiovascular reflexes are weaker, the vessels are stiffer, and the heart takes longer to stabilize. This creates a moment of orthostatic stress, a sudden drop in blood pressure as gravity pulls blood toward the legs. If you move too quickly, the brain is left briefly undersupplied with oxygen, causing dizziness, blurred vision, and instability. And when this moment of vulnerability is combined with the bathroom rush, the risks escalate sharply. Here's why. To urinate, especially after holding urine overnight, your body engages the Valsalva maneuver, a reflex in which you momentarily increase pressure in the chest and abdomen. This action strains the cardiovascular system and forces your heart and blood vessels to fight against increased internal pressure. For someone over 60, this combination, standing too fast, walking with urgency, and then straining, creates a dangerous cascade inside the body. It triggers strokes. The sudden rise and fall of pressure can rupture fragile vessels or destabilize blood flow in areas already affected by aging plaque. Many early morning strokes occur in or near the bathroom where these rapid shifts take place. It forms blood clots. When blood pressure fluctuates harshly, older vessels struggle to maintain smooth flow. Stagnant blood in the legs, combined with the internal strain of urination, can encourage clot formation. A clot that breaks free during this unstable period can travel upward and block a vessel in the brain within seconds. It places enormous stress on the heart. In seniors, the heart muscle may not respond quickly enough to sudden pressure changes. That lag can deprive the brain of oxygen at precisely the moment it needs stability. I remember a 76-year-old woman from Michigan who came to my clinic after experiencing two frightening episodes, brief blackouts each morning right after getting to the bathroom. She thought they were just age catching up. But when we reviewed her routine, the pattern was unmistakable. She jumped out of bed the moment her eyes opened, hurried to the bathroom, and strained. Her blood pressure readings showed sharp drops followed by sudden spikes. She later learned she had suffered two tiny TIAs, silent mini strokes, likely triggered by those abrupt morning transitions. This habit feels harmless because it's part of daily life. But for an older body, the first 60 seconds after waking require respect, patience, and gentleness. Your brain and heart need time to adjust before you expose them to strain. Slow down, pause before rising. Give your body a chance to find balance before you step away from the bed. And if you think this bathroom habit is risky, wait until you see the next morning behavior, a common healthy trend many older Americans follow, unaware that it places the brain under even greater stress. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Skipping breakfast or taking morning medications on an empty stomach. Among older adults in the United States, this habit has quietly become part of modern morning culture. Many seniors wake up, drink coffee, take their medications, and head into the morning with nothing in their stomach. Some do it because they don't feel hungry, others because they're trying intermittent fasting, and many simply fall into the routine without ever questioning its impact. But as a physician who has treated thousands of older Americans, I can tell you this. For people over 60, starting the day without food is one of the most dangerous early morning stressors you can place on the brain. Not eating in the morning doesn't just make you feel weak. It changes your physiology in ways that can trigger strokes and quietly form blood clots long before lunchtime ever arrives. Let me explain exactly what happens. During the night, your body burns through stored glucose to keep your brain functioning during sleep. When you wake up, your brain expects replenishment. But as we age, the liver becomes less efficient at releasing stored glucose. This means older adults are far more vulnerable to morning hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, not dramatic enough to cause fainting, but enough to restrict the brain's access to fuel. And the brain is the most sensitive organ in your body. It has almost no ability to store energy. It needs a steady flow. When it doesn't get that supply, several dangerous things begin to unfold. 1. Your blood pressure rises sharply. The body senses low blood sugar as a threat. In response, it releases stress hormones, especially cortisol and adrenaline, to force glucose out of the bloodstream. This hormonal surge tightens blood vessels, which can raise blood pressure to unsafe levels. 2. Your blood becomes more prone to clotting. Low glucose alters platelet activity and thickens blood consistency. In older adults, this creates the perfect environment for clot formation. A small clot that forms in the morning, combined with dehydration and blood vessel stiffness, can travel upward and block a vessel in the brain. This is why skipping breakfast is linked to a higher risk of ischemic stroke in seniors. 3. It triggers strokes through unstable circulation. When the brain senses a shortage of fuel, blood flow becomes irregular. The vessels dilate and constrict unpredictably. For aging arteries that may already contain plaque, these fluctuations can loosen debris or worsen blockages. 4. Medications become more dangerous on an empty stomach. Many older Americans take blood pressure pills, diabetes medication, thyroid pills, or anticoagulants in the morning. Without food, these drugs can hit the bloodstream too quickly, creating sudden drops in pressure or sharp fluctuations that destabilize circulation. I once cared for a 72-year-old man from Florida who believed he was doing something healthy by skipping breakfast and drinking only black coffee each morning. He began experiencing short waves of confusion, shaky hands, and difficulty recalling words around 10 a.m. He assumed it was aging. But when we checked his blood glucose pattern, the truth was clear. He was dropping too low each morning. Worse, he took his medications on an empty stomach, which magnified the swings in his blood pressure. A scan later revealed he had suffered a small morning TYA, a mini stroke, likely caused by the combination of low blood sugar, dehydration, and medication taken without food. Once he added a small morning meal, nothing heavy, just yogurt, a boiled egg, or a few walnuts, his symptoms disappeared completely. Breakfast for older adults is not about appetite. It is about stability. It is about giving the brain the fuel it needs to protect itself from the chaos of morning physiology. You don't need a large meal. You don't need to cook. Just give your brain something to work with. Because if missing breakfast can create this much risk, you need to be prepared for the next morning habit, one that millions of seniors see as harmless. Yet, it silently places the brain under a level of stress most people never realize until it's too late. 5. Starting your day with stress. Checking the news, emails, or social media too soon. Of all the morning habits I see in older Americans, this one is quietly becoming the most destructive. It doesn't involve movement or diet. It doesn't involve medication or hydration. It involves something far more subtle and far more dangerous for an aging brain. Early morning stress. For many seniors across the United States, the day begins the moment the phone lights up or the television turns on. News alerts, financial updates, political headlines, emails from family, messages from friends. Your brain is flooded with stimulation before your feet even touch the floor. To you, it may feel like just checking in. But to your 60, 70, or 80-year-old nervous system, this is a shock, a jolt, a sudden wave of psychological stress delivered at the most vulnerable moment of the entire day. Here's the medical reality behind that. The human body is wired to experience a natural cortisol surge in the early morning hours. Cortisol is a stress hormone, but in healthy amounts, it helps you wake up and regain alertness. It peaks between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., and in older adults, this peak is even higher and lasts longer. Now imagine adding emotional stress on top of that physiological stress. Your blood pressure is already rising. Your blood is thicker from nighttime dehydration. Your nervous system is still shifting from sleep mode to wakefulness. Your circulation is still trying to stabilize. And suddenly, you introduce fear, frustration, worry, or emotional overload through a glowing screen or a blaring TV. Here's what this combination creates in the older body: a powerful spike in blood pressure, constriction of already stiff blood vessels, a sudden increase in heart workload, an immediate drop in blood flow to critical areas of the brain. This is not small. This is not temporary. This is the exact kind of pressure surge that brain specialists like me dread. Because for seniors, these early morning spikes come with two extremely dangerous outcomes. It triggers strokes. When emotional stress tightens blood vessels that are already constricted by morning cortisol, the sudden pressure increase can rupture a fragile artery or destabilize a plaque deposit. Studies repeatedly show that strokes occur more often in the morning because the brain is caught in this exact storm of pressure and vulnerability. It forms blood clots. Stress makes blood stickier. Platelets activate, blood thickens, add dehydration, high cortisol, and emotional shock, and you create an environment where clots form more easily and can travel upward toward the brain. I treated a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran from Texas who used to start every day watching the news. He admitted it got his blood boiling, but he thought it kept him informed. Over several weeks, he experienced episodes of flashing lights in his vision and brief confusion, signs of transient ischemic attacks. His blood pressure log showed dramatic early morning surges, sometimes reaching dangerous levels within minutes of waking. When he stopped turning on the news first thing in the morning and instead spent 10 quiet minutes breathing and walking, the episodes vanished. What happened to him is a warning for every older American. Your morning should not begin with stress, not with arguments, not with headlines, not with stimulation your brain isn't ready to process. The aging brain needs a buffer, a transition zone, before it faces the world's pressure. Even 10 minutes of calm gives your circulatory system time to stabilize and your brain time to receive the oxygenated blood it desperately needs after a long night. And ask yourself this: if something as simple as a news notification can injure an older brain, what about the next morning habit? One that looks peaceful, even healthy, but carries a hidden danger no one talks about? You might be shocked by what comes next. 6. Ignoring morning blood pressure checks. The silent danger most seniors never see coming. When I speak with older adults across the United States, I'm often told, "Doctor, I only check my blood pressure when something feels wrong." And every time I hear that, I feel a deep concern, because for adults over 60, the most dangerous blood pressure surge happens quietly, invisibly, and predictably every single morning, whether you feel it or not. Let me explain what's happening inside your body the moment you wake up. During the early morning hours, the body experiences what we call the dawn phenomenon. Cortisol rises sharply, adrenaline increases, and the cardiovascular system begins pushing blood harder and faster to prepare you for the day. In younger adults, vessels expand easily and the heart adapts quickly. But in the older body, where arteries are stiffer, plaque is more common, and circulation is less flexible, this natural surge becomes risky. It is the single period of the day when blood pressure reaches its highest volatility. And it happens before breakfast, before medications, and before most seniors ever think to measure it. Why does this matter so much? Because early morning hypertension is one of the strongest predictors of stroke in older adults. Not afternoon blood pressure, not evening blood pressure, morning blood pressure. And yet, millions of seniors never check it. Here's why that is dangerous. 1, it triggers strokes. When morning blood pressure spikes, fragile brain vessels, often narrowed by age or plaque, are suddenly hit with intense pressure. Even a small, momentary surge can rupture a weakened vessel or worsen an existing blockage. This is why so many strokes happen between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m., the very window when most seniors have no idea what their numbers look like. 2, it forms blood clots. High morning pressure forces thick, dehydrated blood through narrow vessels. This increases friction, encourages clot formation, and can push existing clots upward. Once a clot reaches a narrowed artery in the brain, an ischemic stroke can occur within seconds. Many older adults have no symptoms beforehand because the danger was building silently. 3, it destabilizes circulation before medications wake up. Your blood pressure medication needs time, often 30 minutes to an hour, to take effect. If your pressure is already dangerously high before the medication begins working, your brain is left unprotected during the most unstable period of the day. 4, it creates silent injuries. Many older adults never experience major symptoms but suffer microinfarcts, tiny strokes in the small vessels of the brain. These injuries accumulate over years and contribute to memory decline, slower thinking, balance problems, and diminished emotional stability. I once cared for a 78-year-old man from Virginia who insisted his blood pressure was always fine. He checked it only in the evenings when it looked normal, but something didn't sit right with me. We asked him to measure it each morning for a week. The results were shocking. Evening readings around 130 over 75, but morning surges as high as 180 over 95. Within that 1 week, he confessed he had been experiencing brief episodes of vision blurring and momentary confusion, tiny warnings from the brain that he had ignored. With adjustments to his schedule and medication timing, those episodes stopped. But the most important change wasn't the pill. It was finally understanding the danger that had been happening every morning for years. This is why I tell every senior the same thing. You cannot manage what you do not measure. A blood pressure monitor becomes more than a device. It becomes a shield between you and the most common cause of disability in older Americans. Checking your morning pressure takes less than 60 seconds, but those 60 seconds can be the difference between a stable day and an irreversible event. Because if ignoring blood pressure puts you at risk, the next morning habit is even more dangerous and shockingly common. It's something millions of older Americans do every day, believing it's harmless, when in reality, it may set the stage for one of the most devastating vascular events of their lives. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 7. 7. Spending the first hour of the morning sitting still. The hidden circulatory crisis in older adults. Of all the morning habits I warn my older patients about across the United States, this final one is perhaps the most deceptively dangerous. It doesn't look harmful. It doesn't feel dramatic. In fact, many seniors believe it is good for them, an easy, slow, comfortable way to start the day. But medically, especially for adults over 60, spending the first hour of the morning sitting still is one of the most powerful and silent drivers of stroke risk. Let me take you inside the physiology. When you wake up, your blood is naturally thicker from nighttime dehydration. Your muscles are stiff, your veins are relaxed, your blood pressure begins to rise as your brain transitions out of sleep. This is a vulnerable, delicate moment for the aging cardiovascular system. Movement is what helps the body adjust safely, but stillness, especially prolonged stillness, traps the body in a state where poor circulation becomes dangerous circulation. Here is what happens inside the older body when you wake up and spend the next 30 to 60 minutes sitting in a chair, on the edge of the bed, or on the couch. Your calf muscles, which act as the body's natural pump to push blood back toward the heart, remain inactive. Your venous valves, already weakened with age, allow blood to pool in the legs. The blood in your lower body sits stagnant, cooling, thickening, slowing. Meanwhile, your brain is demanding oxygen and nutrients after hours of sleep, but the sluggish circulation struggles to deliver what it needs. Over time, this creates an internal traffic jam, a buildup of slow-moving blood below, and an undersupplied brain above. And this is where the danger becomes truly alarming. It triggers strokes. When the legs trap blood and circulation slows, the heart compensates by increasing pressure. In seniors with stiff arteries or narrowed vessels, this rise in pressure can rupture fragile areas of the brain or worsen an existing blockage. Many morning strokes occur not because seniors exerted themselves, but because they didn't move at all. It forms blood clots. Stagnant blood is clot-forming blood. The longer blood sits still in the veins, the easier it becomes for platelets to clump together. Aging veins already struggle to push blood upward. Stillness magnifies that weakness. A clot formed in the legs during this quiet, motionless hour can break free the moment you stand up, travel through the bloodstream, and lodge in a cerebral artery, causing an ischemic stroke in seconds. It dramatically reduces early morning brain perfusion. Seniors often describe that foggy feeling or slow thinking in the morning. This is not simply age, it's the brain struggling to function with underpowered blood flow. When you remain still, the brain is starved of oxygen at the precise moment it is waking up and attempting to regulate the rest of the body. I cared for a 74-year-old retired engineer from Colorado who followed the same ritual every morning for years. Wake up, sit quietly in his recliner with the newspaper, and stay there for nearly an hour before doing anything else. He believed this calm, peaceful routine was good for his nerves, but he began experiencing sudden spells of blurred vision, tingling fingertips, and brief moments of confusion around 9 a.m. His scans eventually revealed multiple tiny clots, silent microstrokes, likely formed during these long periods of morning stillness when his circulation repeatedly faltered. When we changed his routine to include just 5 minutes of light movement, marching in place, arm circles, gentle stretching, his symptoms stopped completely. The older body does not need force. It does not need sweat. It does not need intensity. It needs flow, steady, gentle, consistent flow that wakes the cardiovascular system safely. Just 2 to 5 minutes of light mobility can cut your morning stroke risk dramatically. And yet millions of seniors still begin their day in complete stillness, unaware of the hidden crisis forming quietly beneath the surface. Because if something as simple as sitting still can trigger a stroke, imagine how many more dangers are hiding in the everyday routines of aging adults. Dangers most people never recognize until it's too late. Now that you've seen all 7 habits, let's bring everything together because the truth behind these morning risks reveals a pattern every senior in America needs to understand before tomorrow morning arrives. Protecting your brain starts the moment you wake up. When I look back at decades of treating older adults across the United States, from quiet rural towns to crowded city clinics, one truth has remained the same. The brain is not harmed by one dramatic event. It is harmed slowly, quietly, through small daily habits that seem harmless but carry enormous weight as we age. That is why the first hour after waking matters more than most people ever imagine. During this window, your blood is thicker, your vessels are stiffer, your circulation is fragile, and your brain is at its most vulnerable point of the day. The 7 morning habits we've uncovered are not abstract theories. They are real, measurable, physiological threats that slowly push the aging brain toward danger, rushing your body when it needs stability, starving your brain when it needs fuel, flooding your system with stress when it needs calm, and allowing stillness to harden into stagnation when your blood needs movement. Every one of these habits affects blood flow. Every one of them increases the odds of forming clots. Every one of them can trigger a stroke in a body that no longer adapts as quickly as it once did. But there is hope, because the same habits that harm you are the ones you can change, not with difficulty, not with expense, but with awareness, with intention, with a quiet willingness to respect the reality of an older body instead of forcing it into the routine of a younger one. A glass of warm water before anything else. A minute of gentle motion before standing. A peaceful mind instead of a stressful headline. A bite of nourishment instead of an empty stomach. A blood pressure reading instead of a guess. A few steps instead of long stillness. These small adjustments are not minor, they are medicine, they are protection, they are longevity in its truest form. The longer I practice, the more convinced I am that the difference between a life altered by stroke And a life lived fully often comes down to choices made in the quiet moments, long before symptoms appear. Your brain is asking for attention, your body is asking for compassion, and your future self is asking you to act now while you still have the power to change the path ahead. Because if your mornings can quietly increase your risk, imagine how powerfully they can protect you. Once you finally begin treating them with the respect your age, your brain, and your life deserve. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.